As you close out your year on your podcast, you will be really served by looking at what has been before you look at what you want to be next. That way you can really get an understanding of what needs to change to get from what's been to what we want to be. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the podcast audit and the things I go through with my own show and we go through with our clients' shows at the end of each year as we start to think about what was and what's next. Welcome to the More Profitable Podcast with Stacey Harris. I'm Stacey, and this is the spot to learn more about the strategies, tactics, and tools you need to build your more profitable podcast. My team and I work every day with podcasters like you to shift shows from frustrating time sucks to productive members of your sales team, because your show should be built to generate and convert leads. So let's get into it. Our final episode of 2022. I love this conversation of what was, and the perspective I want to take today is going to be a little different. Yes, there's going to be some logistical things you check, but most of the logistical sort of housekeeping stuff is in that housekeeping series from October. So if you haven't listened to that yet, go and listen to it. Yes, I will keep hammering this drum. That's where you're going to get in. The cool thing is those episodes are built to be 1 hour total. So there's 4 15-ish minute episodes. So go in, dig in, take care of that. Then we'll go through what we're going to talk about today, which is some logistics. We'll have 2 logistical things we'll sort of start with, but more largely, it's about you assessing any kind of changes you want to make. It's about you being equipped to have the tools you need to potentially create some space in your production calendar for the next year. And more than anything, it's a really great time for you to see what the heck your audience actually cares about, your listeners actually care about, because you and I both know that if your listener is not engaged, is not excited, is not hooked in, they're not going to keep listening. And if they don't keep listening to your content, they're not going to have the opportunity to identify if you are the person or that you are the person ready to help them, available to help them at all, just that you're the right fit. So we want to make sure that we're creating content that helps them answer those questions. Is this my problem? Is this my solution? Before we dig into it, I want to remind you, Podcast Newsroom is the place to go for those monthly episodes on what's happening and what you need to know. Our December episode is out now. January episode will be out in a couple of weeks. I also want to remind you that we are doing podcast audits over on the Podcast Newsroom starting in January. So if you would like to sit down with me for a call, if you would like to get my ears on your podcast, and you are willing to share that conversation and the link to that episode with the listenership of the Podcast Newsroom, reach out, let me know, fill out the form linked in our show notes. It just says audit application, I think, and submit your application for an audit and we'll get you booked. We're going to be committing to those. We're going to do 12. We're going to do 1 a month, every month throughout 2023. So if you want to be one of those 12, let me know. We'll get you booked. I'm excited. Let's dig into the show now. Let's talk about this audit. I know it's scary, but it's going to be good. Let's start with the logistical. 3 sort of logistical places you need to be checking in on and making some decisions. Your destinations. Go into your host and make sure your show goes out to all the places it can go out to. Sometimes you miss emails and you don't see announcements for new destinations that your podcast host has set up as just easy breezy. Libsyn is great about this. Literally, you just go to the destinations tab and you can see all of the ways you can submit your show, and you can go in a matter of a couple of minutes and get those out. This is something we had a lot of success with clients this year, is going, hey, let's just actually put your podcast out on more than just Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And oh my gosh, look at that listenership grow. Now, honestly, for most of our clients and for this show, Apple Podcast is the big one. I get definitely the bulk of our traffic from Apple Podcasts. Spotify is actually way, way down there for us. We have a lot more people who listen to us via Amazon. I think it's actually Audible, but Amazon Music. So those destinations, making sure you are set up in all the places. More than once, we have had a client on board with us, or we've gotten into a podcast strategy intensive and we're looking at things. And guess what? Their show is like just on Apple Podcasts because that's the name we all recognize, right? That's the thing we all know. And again, for a lot of us, that may be our biggest download space, but it's definitely not the only game in town. It's absolutely free to be everywhere. And it's helpful in things like Google rankings and stuff like that. And you'll be amazed at how many of the third-party feeds actually feed off another feed. So like Overcast and players like that actually scrape from like Apple Podcasts and things like that. So getting places will get you even more places. So make sure you're checking in on those destinations. The second one's release dates. So this is something we actually evolved this year. We went from a Tuesday release day to a Wednesday release day. This is something that was completely my choice. This is something that was completely a me thing. We have several clients who release on Tuesday and several more clients who release on Thursday. And this show used to come out on Tuesday, and it was just as I was going through and checking that all the shows were out and everything was good, I would forget this one. And I really wanted it to be by itself. And so I chose Wednesday. It changed our downloads, not one iota. Because guess what? You show up to the show when the show shows up for you. That's pretty common. So be thoughtful, not just around, being available for your listener or setting the tone in a certain way, but also what works best for you and your structure and your flow. You can really tie this in a little bit with format even. If you're somebody who wants to sort of set the tone for the week with your clients and you want that to be an important part of your format, maybe you have affirmations or goal setting, or there's some strategies for the week or mindset tips for the week or whatever that sort of structure might be. Monday makes total sense. Sunday might even make total sense. We have clients who their show is sort of structured to be part of the sort of Sunday week setup for their listeners as they're thinking ahead and planning their week and going into their work for the week. They prep Sunday night. And so their show is there Sundays to help them do that. We also have clients who the same is sort of true for Friday as they prep for their weekend or as they wrap up their week. Their episodes are there for them to do that with them. So be thinking about sort of how it ties into your format, but also really, really don't undervalue it just working for you. A good way to get an idea of when your listeners are listening is to check download data. And that's the last thing I want to talk about as we wrap up this super short episode is be paying attention to your download trends. And the reason we're doing this last is because this is going to be my biggest soapbox of the episode. This is the part where we get out of that logistical and we start looking at that strategic. We start looking at what's next. So look at your download data and really spend some time there. And there's a couple of things I want to look at. From a release date standpoint, do you see a day of the week where maybe it's not the day you release episodes, but for some reason you have a huge spike in listenership? So maybe you release episodes on Sunday, but your Monday downloads are bananas. Or your Thursday numbers are bananas. They're great. Cool, then yeah, it might make sense to adjust that. But also, this can just be good information about when your audience listens. And that's the second piece I want you to look at with these download trends is when you're looking at your numbers and you're looking at that first 30 days of listening to an episode, where is the spike? Because there's a spike. There's always a spike. There's always a place where sort of most of your listeners listen. And in most cases, that's going to be in that first day or two or maybe three, right? Those first few days that episode is out, that's where you'll see that big spike. But for some shows, and we have a couple of these that we produce, it's actually about 10 days later. Like their listenership is just kind of a week behind. And so when we're mapping out sales times, when we're mapping out when we're running certain ads or promotions, we're factoring that in. we're doing the episode that we would do as sort of a cart close episode the week before the cart closes, not the week the cart closes. Because the week the cart closes is when they'll actually be listening to that episode. And for the listeners who do listen week of, that release week, or that cart close week rather, that cart close week will also still have a sales focus episode. But maybe it's a case study, or maybe it's a sort of last call kind of focus that's just there to scoop up who listens live and redirect those who are a week behind to the wait list or to a downsell. But we're using that data to understand where we need to put our promos, where we need to time sales based on their listener trends. So look for those trends. The third trend I want you to look for as you're looking through this download data is, where can you be taking time off next year? Where are your downloads just already sort of naturally low? For example, we took August as a re-release series this year. We re-released stuff that we had shared before. It was all really great stuff. And guess what? Every single one of those episodes got as many or more downloads in the first 30 days this time around as they did the first time around. Some of those episodes got significantly more than they did the first time around because new people are finding your show all the time. People's needs and your release schedule might be different. And this is why we repeat ourselves. The thing they need now might be the thing you talked about 6 months ago, or a year ago, or 5 years ago. Whatever the case may be. So be paying attention to where are those spots where your download numbers are already a little lower. Again, ours is August. And honest to goodness, across all but maybe 2 of the shows we produce, and those really make sense to me why it's not slow then, because there's another seasonal component for them. But across pretty much every show we produce, certainly all of the shows that are business owners speaking to business owners. So where we're talking about business coaches or service providers, August, slow. It drops sometimes dramatically every August. And honestly, I think this August was one of the worst ones we've had because people are just checked out. We're tired, man. We're slugging, right? We're on vacations. We're getting ready to get kids back to school. We're enjoying our last weeks of summer. If you live places where summer ends, I live in Southern California, so come visit me in January. You'll love it. But I want you to be looking at, cool, I have this space already that's low. Where can I, because I know the juice is going to be less, where can I reduce the squeeze, right? Where can I roll back my energetic expenditure so it's more comparable to the payoff? And that means re-releasing episodes and or straight up taking some time off, which is the other example I have for you. The last 2 weeks of December tend to be real slow on the downloads around here. And so guess what? We take them off. This will be the last episode of 2022. So I don't know, listen to it again next week. The good news is this is also episode 583 of this show. Okay, there are plenty for you to check out should this one just entice you to keep listening, right? Your show probably has it too. Maybe it doesn't have 583, but if it has 10 or 12 or 50 or 100, you'll be fine, love. So use that download trend to identify where is some time that we can take some space. Where is some time that we can roll back our energetic expenditure, build in some rest, and still serve the needs of our clients. Because we're also going to use that download trend to identify what are those episodes we'd want to repurpose. What are those episodes that just did really well this year? What are those episodes that we know are going to need to be repeated next year because every year kids go back to school, or every year you have to set business goals, or every year you have the rub of a holiday and the discomfort of your, where you are in life, or I don't know, whatever it is that you might help your listenership. Where are those things that are repeatable? Or where are those things that you just know, I'm going to need to revisit this. This is going to be a thing we're going to have to talk about. A great example of this is we have one client who we run the same 4 episodes. This will be the 4th year in a row, 3rd year in a row that we run those same episodes at the start of the year. They do gangbusters numbers every year because they serve a listenership where they're at the beginning of the year. It speaks to the needs of the listener the first month of the year. And so it does really well. Our podcast housekeeping series is likely something we'll run next August. It got built this October, so it could be that thing we run every year. Because if my downloads are down, there's a somewhat good chance that your downloads are down. Especially if you're also a service provider offering a high value, high dollar service to an entrepreneur. Like, we very likely have a similar, not necessarily guaranteed, but it's incredibly possible that you and I have a similar ICA. There's some overlap, certainly enough overlap that we'd see the same lulls. Meaning, I can serve you in that lull with, hey, here's some things we can do to be polishing up our show before we hit that inevitable bounce back in September. Because also, we're going to see in that download trends, as much as we dip in August, we bounce back big time in September every year. Because people are playing catch up from whatever episodes went out in August. And because they're showing back up for the work. They're getting back into that routine as we hit the end of Q3 and start of Q4. And I know that because I can see the data. I'm not guessing that. I'm not hoping that. I'm not hypothesizing that. And yes, that's different than guessing because it's an educated guess. We all took 3rd grade science, right? I'm using the numbers. I'm seeing the fact. And here's the great news. Year 1 of your show is data. Year 2 against year 1 of your show is data. Year 5 against year 2 of your show can be data. So the more you stay in this, the more you show up for this, the more data you will have to help you make these decisions. But that won't happen until you keep consistent, until you keep taking those actions over and over and over and over again. The chop wood, carry water vibes, right? So you got to be showing up for that. But that also means doing this at the end of each year, showing up for that end of the year review. And so look at your numbers and see, where can I create space next year? Where do I want to take some time off? Where can I serve the needs of my listeners with content I already have? The second and sort of final component of this is, what do I want to make better? So I've created this asset. It did great numbers, but I'm not super, super proud of it. So maybe I re-record it. Maybe I polish it up. Maybe I've learned something new. Maybe I have further niched down with my client. I have a better understanding of who we work with and what they need right now. And so there's some language changes I want to make. And so I'm always looking at where are some episodes I can just polish up. And we'll go back and we replace that episode. It exists on the same page post on the website, but it's got a new audio file. We've released it with a new date. So it's in the top of the podcast feed. But I'm making it better. A great example of this is your challenges. We talked about this with Rachel Cook on the how to get more, I think it's how to use challenges. I'll link it in the show notes. But if you search Rachel Cook on the site, you'll find the episode. We just re-released it. It was actually one of the episodes we re-released in August, if you want to scroll down. And we talked about her using the challenge, and she often re-records them because it's fresh energy and it updates the year, and she can make whatever 1% tweaks she wants to make. She can polish it. So that's the other piece I want you to look at as you're looking at those download trends. What are you not just going to rerun, but you do want to evolve. You do want to tweak. You do want to improve. All right? Okay, that's our show. That's our show for the year. Whew, I will see you next year. I love that joke every year. I can't get enough of it. I don't know why. This is also my last time I will be reminding you that there are spots, unless you're on the email list, there are spots available now for January podcast strategy intensives. January is when we're going to be doing the Q1 ones. So head on over, grab your podcast strategy intensive spot, and let's sit down so we can do some of this, have this kind of conversation together. Because if you are listening to this episode and feeling wildly uncomfortable at the idea of doing this, it's a great way to use an intensive. So let's do that. All right. Again, uncommonlymore.com/intensive is the place to book yours. And I will see you next year. Giggle, giggle. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Remember that content consumption does not make changes. So commit to doing something from today's episode. Maybe it's taking action on what we talked about. Maybe it's reaching out to me and learning more about podcast strategy intensives or what podcast production looks like with our team. All of that is over at uncommonlymore.com. And if you haven't yet signed up for the podcast newsroom, I want to remind you that is a great next step. If you're not really sure what comes next, hang out over there. Get those exclusive private episodes. That's over at podcastnewsroom.com. And the last favor I will ask, because social proof is endlessly important for sure, is to leave a rating or review for the show. If you go to ratethispodcast.com/more, that's the easiest way to do it. But I would love to hear what you thought of the show, what you think of the show, and if the show has been helpful for you. I can't wait to chat with you. So this is just the start of the conversation. Reach out so we can keep it going. Talk soon.